Hello everybody, Marty Richards with Richland Center Tourism here today, and we are out in the field literally today with a little bit of a behind the scenes video. Right now we are in the middle or the thrust of Morel Mushroom season, and in our neck of the woods that's a pretty big deal. So I brought the big guns out today. Today I have with me Brian Alvin. Brian, a good friend of mine, but also recognized in the Tri-County area as one of the biggest and best Morel mushroom hunters. Isn't that true? Wouldn't you agree?
You're stretching the truth a little.
Okay, stretching maybe a little, but actually that's not true. Brian is recognized as the go-to if you want to learn or understand how to how to find mushrooms. They don't run away on you, actually. But he is really somebody with a lot of experience and does understand what you're looking for, how and why. Brian's going to share with us some of his tips, tricks, a little bit of the etiquette of hunting morels. So stay with us here, follow along. This should be really interesting, and if we're not careful, we might actually learn something. So thank you for joining us. Let's check that out. So, Brian, you're finally going to try to teach me something. Just real quick, my history with mushroom hunting is that I've probably stepped on more mushrooms than I've actually picked. So I'm going to ask for a little help from you on how to, number one, discover the right place or what I should be looking for. Okay. And then also, once I get there, what should I be looking for? Because I really stink at it. So first thing, if I was going to first try to go mushroom hunting, so Morel mushroom hunting, what would I look for first thing?
You need to search for trees, the elm tree, and there's white elms and red elms. The difference is the color of the bark. Okay. And typically the red elms are bigger before they die for some reason. I don't know why, before they get the Dutch elm disease. So you're looking for bark on the trees. I got my head in the air looking at the branches. So
that struck me as we were coming in on top of the ridge here and we were driving here and looking. I was like, why is Brian looking for deer or turkeys? Because you were really looking out on the horizon more than what I was thinking. So you were looking for the tree first, the tree top. And I learned in the past, or was told in the past, you look for that dead tree on the floor of the forest. That's not correct. No. Really what we're looking for is
a freshly tree that's dying, just starting to die. Okay. The bark, it's better to find one that's got the bark just starting to peel on the top of the tree compared to a tree that has no bark. You won't find a mushroom. Yeah, it's been dead for several years. So it'd be like last year it might have had leaves on it, and this year it doesn't. So or you'll find an elm that'll be half dead. You'll see leaves on one side of the tree and dead on the other. You typically won't find a mushroom there until no leaves on the tree.
Okay. So right now we are, honest folks, I have to tell you, we are at an undisclosed location because Brian, who is known as one of the premier mushroom hunters in our area, is pretty possessive of his areas he goes mushroom hunting. So our videographer, Roy, myself, were actually picked up behind in an alley and had bags thrown over our heads, thrown into a windowless panel van by some guys that were, I gotta be honest with you, they were a little rough. Okay. But we made it here, we're okay. And so correct me if I'm wrong, I've been around this game a little bit, but it hasn't stuck with me. But when I talk to the guys like you that really take mushroom hunting serious, you really don't share secrets or hunting grounds together at all, do you?
No, not really.
Not at all.
No.
Huh?
No. It's kind of like the big buck story.
Okay, well, that makes sense. You don't really tell people where you're finding the biggest and the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of helped us out to understand what kind of a tree we're looking for. So when we find that tree, what's our next step?
The most important thing is to take your time, step carefully, and go one step and search, especially right in front of your feet so you don't step on them. And the best way I've found is to get below the tree if you're on a hillside. Look up at the tree because the angle, you can get the right angle to see them better. And once you find one, then I just stand and search the tree area, and it can be as far as 50 feet away from the tree sometimes, and sometimes it can go right at the base of the elm.
So you're starting further out and work your way uphill
okay.
towards the tree.
Correct.
And when you find one, basically stop in your tracks.
Yep. And depending on the foliage, because typically elms that die grow a lot of brush around them, prickly ash and stuff.
Sure.
So that's why you end up getting a lot of scratches
Yep.
and stuff when you. So when you go mushroom
So
hunting,
I've
everybody
gotten
knows
scratches.
what you're doing.
Yeah, I've gotten scratches. I just haven't found many mushrooms.
Yeah. And then once you find your mushrooms, and I circle the tree many times if there's a lot of them around it, and because of the leaves on the ground, they might be hiding under there.
Sure.
And then if you get the right angle on them, you might see it from the other side.
Okay. So you're going to show me here, because again, I have huge feet, big hands, and I'll step all over stuff. But I want you to show me how you would search and approach, because again, I'm pretty sure I've stepped on them before. So this isn't as simplistic as it sounds.
No.
But go ahead and.
So I take one step at a time, always looking in front of my feet, and then I always look where I'm going to step the next step, and then I'm looking left and right and in front. It's just searching, doing a whole search. So once I find a mushroom, I always pick my bag out of my pocket, and this is actually a Morel Mushroom bag, it's called a shroom sack. A friend of mine gave this to me about 20 years ago. It's really durable, and it allows the spores to filter through, and it doesn't get hung up on brush. Like you can run it through, and because for years I used to use bread sacks or plastic bags, and next thing I know, my bag all of a sudden got lighter, and I look back and there's mushrooms on the ground. Trailing mushrooms, and this allows the spores to sprinkle, and they might reproduce some more.
Sure. So you're seeding. Really, now you're farming at this point.
It does. Then we step forward again, and sometimes I'm looking way out beyond, because if I don't see anything here, I'm looking. Like I said, mushrooms can grow numerous feet from the tree, and I just keep approaching the base of the tree, and a lot of times I'll see if one's on the back side, and then I'll do a full circle and then come back around a different angle. And it usually takes me sometimes 5 to 10 minutes to search a tree thoroughly, and then because I don't want to leave any. So then I go on and I start looking up in the trees again.
You're going at, yeah.
And looking for
focus changes, and I'm looking for another elm.
I'm looking for another elm that would possibly have mushrooms around it.
Okay. Now, we didn't find anything here today because this season, a little rough on mushrooms. Kind of helped me out with that one. I know the moisture issue, but kind of explain that a little bit if you would.
We're almost the 1st of May, and there has been very few mushrooms found because we haven't had the moisture. Early in April, we had moisture, but it was cold. And typically, you find mushrooms anywhere from like the 15th of April through Mother's Day. I have found them past Mother's Day, but you got to look on the north sides by then.
So it changes. It kind of goes from south side to the north side?
North side, yeah. Yep, okay. Exactly. And
so if we get rain now, it's not too late?
No, we're not too late in finding mushrooms, no. So, we definitely need rain. It's extremely dry.
Is it true one time you told me that it was dry like this, and then it rained? It was about the 1st of May, and because it was so warm, you could hear the mushrooms growing.
Yeah, well, that's typically a rumor, but now I can actually, this sounds silly, but I have, when I'm hunting mushrooms and after a rain, It almost smells like you can smell them.
Do you drink heavily before you go mushroom hunting? No.
No.
Okay, I was
No.
just checking.
No.
But actually there's probably a science behind that there could be some truth to that.
There could be. To me, I feel like I can smell them. You know, the air is different, the ground or something, but it smells like a morel mushroom.
Sure. So Brian, another legend that I've heard, and I think I heard it from you, was that you once picked a mushroom that was so big you needed a chainsaw to cut it. Is that correct?
It was actually a butter knife. But
It was a butter knife. But
there is
that kind of
rumors out
reduced
there.
the size of the
Yeah,
mushroom.
yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
honest with you. I was impressed because I had visions of you with your four-wheeler dragging it back to the house.
No.
That didn't happen.
No, I've never found like the giant big ones that you take to contests and stuff. I found many big ones, but nothing that.
What are the most you've found around one tree? The number?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that. It was just 5 years ago or so. I come up to this tree and looked up the hill, and I could actually see the mushrooms before I seen the tree, and I was like, oh my goodness, look at that. So I started walking. I was like, there's mushrooms everywhere. So I started counting the mushrooms, and I picked 414 mushrooms under one tree.
Under one tree.
Under one tree. It was the most I ever found, and it come to like 13 pounds.
So then you quit for the season because you were done, right? Because you picked so many under that one tree, then that was it for you for the season, right?
For that day.
For that day.
I was tired.
Awesome. That's a lot of mushrooms. So Brian, I know we went to high school together, and you've been, hunting, picking. I call it hunting because for me, when you don't find them and catching, it is catching mushrooms for me. So rare. But in your situation, you've been hunting mushrooms for a long time. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got, the hooked on it and how you honed the craft, quite honestly?
Well, I was a kid. I think it was probably about 1970-ish. I was about 7 or 8 years old, and come home from school, and Dad had a little Ford tractor hooked up to I don't remember if it was a wagon or a trailer, and the only time he ever did that in the spring of the year is when we had to pick rock.
Pick rock, yes. Yep.
And I went, oh geez, Dad wants us to pick rock after school. So, and my 2 older brothers were there, and he goes, guys, get in a wagon, and I gotta, take you and show you something. And Mom was along too, and we went back on the back side of the farm, and apparently earlier in the day, Dad was plowing and saw a tree, and he went down, and when he got there was all kinds of mushrooms, so he took us there, and he wouldn't tell us till we got to the tree. I didn't know what we were doing.
You thought you were picking rock.
Yeah, I thought we were picking rock, and then all of a sudden he started going in the woods, and we got down to this tree, and there's mushrooms everywhere. And at that time, I was being a little kid, I was stepping on them, and we were picking mushrooms, and ended up picking over 30 pounds into that one tree. But I've never found that many under one.
That is a bunch of mushrooms.
Yeah, so from that time on, I was hooked.
Yeah, well, that would do it.
Yeah.
That would do it.
Yeah.
So a couple of things for people who are, first timers or new, or maybe they don't have their own property they can go hunting on. Are there a couple of things you would suggest as far as etiquette if you're going to go mushroom hunting on people's property?
Well, you want to go and ask, and then, or if you have family members or friends, I've went and asked neighbors who are elderly or something that can't get out anymore. I enjoy going that much, and I give them to them.
Sure.
In all the years I've mushroom hunted, I've hardly sold any, maybe 10, 15 pounds at the most.
You bet. So
I do it for pleasure, because I enjoy it that much.
So good etiquette is, number one, always ask before you go on the property, and then number two, especially if it's elderly folks that they appreciate mushrooms, that you'd share what you found with them too.
Yes.
Okay, good deal. So Brian, thank you for taking us out in the woods, showing us, kind of a way to hunt, look for mushrooms, the tree to look for. You did a really good job of kind of explaining what we should be doing. Also, the etiquette points are very important, and I'm glad you shared that with us. So again, Brian, thank you very much for sharing that. So folks, I really encourage, if you have an opportunity here in the next week or two in Richland County, still prime mushroom hunting. If we get some rain, they're going to probably pop pretty hard too, I would suspect, because there's a lot of spores laying around.
The ground temperature is warm enough. We get a shot of rain, they should pop.
You bet. And if you're looking for a place to go, one of our parks that I would suggest, Ash Creek Community Forest would be an awesome place. 354 acres of land that's public land. Don't have to ask for permission. Just go on out, take a look. Remember the tips Brian gave you, and get some exercise and look for those morels because they are fantastic. So anyway, again, for Richland Center Tourism, for Brian Alvin, Marty Richards, thank you for joining us. Have a great day.